Okay, so this is my final demonstration for my automated pet feeder, the Fancy feeder. A quick overview, we'll just be going over the system, the programming, and the casing. This is a schematic I created in the Fritzing software of all my electrical components. And really quickly, this is just the main components to my system, the driver to drive the stepper motor, and I'll just briefly go over these files or code. This right here just imports the time and the GPIO pins, and this just sets the pins like step, direction, transistor, and this you'll declare BCM or board. So whether you're using the actual GPIO pin numbers or the board pinout numbers or pin numbers, and this just sets them to an output. Here is the self dot direction. This will just make it go left or right. So if I put it on low, it will go right. And if right now I have it on high and it makes my motor go left. This that's commented out was just what I used to test the stepper motor. So basically, if I would uncomment and run it, it would run my motor continuously. Okay, so now going on to the scales. So I actually have two of these files for the reservoir and the feeding bowl, but they're the exact same except the reference unit. So this is pretty self-explanatory, but same thing, declaring the GPIO pins, and then this you can find in the data sheet, the least significant bit to most significant bit, the reading format. And how you get the reference unit is, let's say for example, I have a 5 kilogram load cell. So that's about 10 or 11 pounds. So what you'll do is put half of the weight on the scale. So for me, I put 5 pounds on the scale after I ran this code. So resetting and tear will tear it, but it will still come out very odd numbers that are just not right. So what you'll do is run this code and then you'll set the 5 pounds on it after it's teared. You're going to get about 10 values. You can do more if you want a little bit more accurate. 10 values, I definitely think is enough. You'll add all of those together and then you'll get the average, and then you'll divide it by, let's say mine is 5 pounds. So that's about 2,167 grams. So you'll divide it by that amount of grams. And that's how I got the negative 410. And I did that again for the feeding bowl scale, and I think I got around 402. So negative or positive is fine. And this just basically makes the weight only output a positive number, powering down and powering up the scale. Going and moving on to the Pi setup. So for any when you're setting up a headless Pi, you're going to connect it to, via SSH, which is a secure socket shell. You'll now if you have a display keyboard and monitor, or the monitor display, a display keyboard and a mouse, you will not, you won't have to do this. And now you'll open up Xming and PuTTY, so you'll download these first, of course, but they're basically an open source terminal emulator, and Xming will just display it. So PuTTY will display the Pi terminal, where you would type Raspberry Pi config, etc., where you would update your Pi, because it's a computer. So the Xming will actually just display the desktop of the Pi, your Python, etc. So setting up the Pi, as I said previously, you'll just want to type this into the terminal, things like Raspberry config. There's a lot of websites out there to help you set up your Pi and install and update it. So installing a server on your Pi, this will allow you to access the website. You're going to run certain commands. Again, you can find this all over the internet. Apache, PHP5, the mod, and MySQL. MySQL is the place where it's going to store the data. It's a database server. It's going to store the data from the website. You'll end up port forwarding this to not only be able to access the website locally, but at your friend's house over in Michigan, wherever, you'll be able to access this website. And then you'll want to set your, and you can do this before this as well. Usually when you set up a headless pie, you'll set your static IP before this, but you'll want to set up a static IP for your Raspberry Pi. This can be done in the cmd.txt file, or you can configure it in the terminal. Okay, now just moving on to the MySQL database. So previously I did state that I used an extensive tutorial for this. I've learned a lot, but I do want to go ahead and say that basically the MySQL database, again, it stores the data. You'll go ahead and create that database. You'll create the tables, which are what these are: the feeding times, food eaten, food reservoir, max portion size, etc. And then you'll want to insert, the website will insert the data. You can also insert filler data before. And then you'll create users. Mine were website and feeding script. So now, before I explain the launching of the files, I'll go ahead and move on to opening the files. So again, what we're going to want to do is get PuTTY, open, log into the Pi, and we'll start the meeting. We'll just wait a few seconds and it will pop up. Okay, so now we are in the desktop. Now we'll go to the files, and we're going to go ahead and want to open up feeding script and like the website file. I'll just wait. So we can go ahead and go through the feeding script first. Again, this is importing, and then this is declaring the names, and then also the GPIO pins. This is getting the feeding times into the list times. And then this is updating the table when you remove a feeding time or add it. Updating the max portion size. And then after that, it'll reset it to false and stop updating. And then this is what I really struggled with. I could not get the times to work. And now seeing how simple it was to actually get the times to work, I just must have been overthinking it or just not seeing the bigger picture. But basically, I ran some loops to continuously check the current time to the feeding times, like the times you added on the website. So I turned I, which is the times in the hour, minute, second format, into a string, as well as now into a, which is the current time, into a string, and it's also forming hour, minute, second. But if you just set them, if you just compare them equal, it will not work. So you'll end up, or what I did is I ended up separating them by character, and then just comparing them this way. So if this is true, all the way down to if the last one, actually the last one, so not the the first second, basically the second, not the millisecond, basically. If this is true, if this is all true, while this is true, do this. So this checks how much food can be eaten, checks the max portion size, if it's kilogram or gram, and then this gets the list of times, but as a how many there are, basically. So if you inputted 3 times for the day, this would be 3. So what I ended up doing is dividing the portion by the list, the number of times. And then I needed to divide it by 4 to get the proper amount of food did it dispense. So I just, the way I did this is basically I just continuously tested it until I got the right number. So I would run it. If it was, too high or too low, I would adjust accordingly. This starts up the feeding scale, and then the motor turns, and then it will weigh up how much food went to the feeding bowl and update the website. Or here, it'll put the results in a list, and then it'll update the website. Set out to food eaten. Then this calculates how much is resting from the max portion size. So basically from the reservoir, and that's where this starts up the scale. And this is just repetitive, follows the same exact thought process for the reservoir as the feeding bowl scale. So we can go ahead and move on to this file right here. So this is the homepage of the website. This was just accessing and basically importing from DB class and getting and setting basically is what I'm trying to say. So this gets all the food that's been eaten from the current day and then sets it to the food eaten. Also gets the dog's information, and it sets gets the food reservoir weight. The manual feed, it just imports again. This is very similar to the feeding script, except it doesn't have the constriction of the times. So basically, it just gets a request form from the portion size that's in the database when you input it on the website in the unit. Is it a gram? Else, if not, and then it's again the same thought process. I had to divide it by 4 to get the accurate turn for the motor. Starts at scale again. It's same thought process as before. I won't repeat all of this just for time's sake. And then the settings right here, it's going to get the dog information. It's going to get the max portion size, and then it'll get the pet's weight to calculate how much food is recommended. I'll show all of this again on the website. I've previously shown it in the mid-semester demo. This adds the data to the website, so adds an update. So again, like you requested to kind of have it more cleaned up, so I ended up taking out these 2 lines that they don't mean anything. They were just requests, and I inputted fillers just to ensure that the website would run. I could just completely take it out, but just again for time's sake, I didn't. I just did fillers for the request form, not to crash the website. And so, anyways, it definitely makes the website look a lot more neat and put together. So here it gets the dog's information and gets the current max portion size. It's very repetitive. Gets the resting portion size, feeding times, new times. It adds the times to these databases, set data to feeding times. Again, remove time, adding the portion size, which will be the max portion size on the settings page. We will get to that. The history, this does the graph and sets all of that and gets it. So here, this is where you'll change the date, and then you have your port 8080 and then the host. Okay, so now that we have kind of gotten an understanding for the files, we move back to the presentation. So we just went over the 2 files that are going to be launched the Python files that will be launched when the Pi boots up. These are just a few steps you can follow. Again, there's a lot on the internet about this, but basically when my Pi boots up, or when it's plugging in, these files will continuously run. So you'll have no trouble starting them up, and also it'll always be running to check the time. Okay. So now I wanted to log into the website, or my bad. And now you can see the Fancy Feeder website. So here it has, today Frankie has eaten. And I, previously in the mid-semester demo, I had this only just continuously adding the amount. So when the motor turned, basically I added that amount that was suggested here instead of actually getting this amount from the scales. So now, let's say I input 10 grams here, but only 7 grams is dispensed because it is about 3 to 4 grams off usually. It'll only add 7 grams here now. It will no longer just immediately do 10, even if nothing came out. So here, the feedback is accurate. This shows how much food is left. So if however much food is in the reservoir, but it's very self-explanatory. Basically, it just shows how much food is left. I don't currently have this working, but I should have it done in a day or two. So we'll jump to history before I show it working. This just, you can enter the day and just check your pet's eating habits. So around here, 14 grams. Here, dispensed 122. And then here, 54. So it just shows you. And then you can go on different days. So here's the timers. So again, I will show this in just a minute, but basically you can just, you could remove a time. You could add a time, so we can just add the time just a minute ago. There, on settings, you can input the name, and that's how it gets basically this right here. And or like all throughout the website, it grabs this basically. And then the weight. So right now it's at 64 grams. So 4 kilograms, about 9 to 10 pounds. So that's how much Frankie weighs, and this is how much I give her. So if I do about 5, it'll change to 78, and so on. In the mid-semester demo, I kind of explained how I did this, but basically my Love Some food is 100 calories per cup. So I just kind of calculated it this way. And about 25 grams per pound. My bad. About 25 grams per pound. So I calculated it that way. And then you could just change the portion size. So we did do 64 grams and change that here. I'll set, and it will always go back to kilograms, but you can always like reset that. So, and then this will show how much Frankie can still eat today. So obviously I've went over the max portion size, so she can't eat anymore. All right, so now I'm going to demonstrate. Okay, so now I'm going to show the demonstration. I have it where you should be able to see the website and the actual system. I'm just going to go through the system really quickly. Here's the ramp, the feeding bowl. This actually has the scale under it. And then right here, I'm going to end up doing a door here with a lock and stuff. But basically inside, there's a scale under the food reservoir. And this is on a shelving. You can see back there the wiring and electronics. And then here in the back is just where I have it plugged in. And then up here is just where the food and where I had to create that tunnel and just where it will dispense. Okay, so we can go ahead and input about, let's do about 10 grams and we can watch it feed. Get a good angle. All right, and as you can see, it did do a little bit more than 10 grams. That's okay, unless you're just really particular, and then you could look at it a little bit more. So then we can go ahead and jump to timers, and it's 10:48 now. We can go ahead. Let me see how long it has until it changes. Okay. I don't know if we'll be able to get it in time. Let's see. Okay, hold on one second. Okay, I was a little off, so it came in a little bit late. So we can go ahead and do, let's do 10:50 p.m. Go ahead and add it, and then we'll watch it come out. Here's the time. I was going to make it big, but it cuts out. All right. So there you go. There's my working automated pet feeder.